I don't know if you guys heard about this RICO prosecution case against a really popular rap artist. His name is Young Thug. Really popular rap songs, and RICO is actually a federal statute that they use to go after organized crime. That's what they used to go after the mob, and apparently they're accusing him of being involved in the criminal organization, being part of it or leading the criminal organization. And RICO basically is Racketeering, Influence, Corrupt Organization Act. So when police organizations or the feds had a difficult time catching one specific individual because of the type of crimes that are being committed, they brought this act to try to catch the whole group and the collectiveness of the crime. So actually the grand jury indictment against Young Thug is pretty lengthy. But what I thought was interesting and actually made the bigger headline than the criminal prosecution itself is they're going to use his lyrics and his song as part of the evidence, the criminal prosecution against him.
So RICO charges, we've seen these before.
Right.
I think Al Capone and, John Gotti and famous mob bosses over time, they're saying, look, you didn't pull the trigger, but you're the ringleader or you're the organizer or you're involved in it in some way, and so we're gonna sort of loop you in like a sort of like a group, almost like a blanket, right, thrown over everybody. Cast this net and bring all you guys in, right? That's essentially
right. Like you're the puppet master. You're pulling the strings behind the puppets, right?
Okay.
And I think that was the idea, is the fact that most of the time they found out that they were unable to, or the head of the criminal enterprise was never actually involved in the crime, but that was a way to get the whole criminal enterprise to be brought to justice.
So it's like it's under your direction, or maybe you planned it and organized it, but you weren't the one actually executing it.
Right.
But this is a way to get everybody.
Right, because you may have had lieutenants, you may have had other people to do it. So you never, the person wasn't caught in the actual act of committing the crimes. There are other people committing at the person's behest. So it's very difficult to trace it to the leader. But the way they figured out to get the leader is by charging the entire group, and the leader being as part of that group and part of that organized crime, and everyone gets charged. As a matter of fact, in this act, a lot of other people were charged. Some of his friends, some of his close friends, and apparently some of them have recently taken some plea bargains. And some people say, oh, they're ratting him out, and obviously there may be a reason for it, and a lot of times because they're offering favorable testimony to the prosecution. But the question is, how do you feel about using his song, a very popular song, the lyrics in the song, right? This is art. This is artistic expression, artistic license. They're going to use the song as some of the evidence against.
He's a popular rap star,
right?
But he's also some sort of head of a criminal enterprise, right?
That's what they're saying.
Right, that's what they're saying. And they're using his lyrics, saying what in his song he's talking about some of these crimes that they're charging him with.
I believe that the song that they're referring to is actually his lyrics are saying, I am the head of this group. I have done this. I have done that. And they're using those lyrics in order to show that exactly what they're being offered for the truth of what's called the truth of the matter asserted, which is he is the leader of the group. He did commit those crimes. And I think that one of the interesting part about we're using artists' own words is that, considering one of the most famous one, let's say Johnny Cash said, I shot a man in Reno, for example, well, now can you actually go after him and saying, well, look, you said that you shot a man in Reno, can we actually go further with that and, prosecute him for a crime like that? Even though it's artistic, it's almost artistic license.
Right. Well, you brought up something very interesting. Generally, in the legal system, hearsay, out-of-court statement that's offered for the truth of the matter asserted. Our legal system doesn't like hearsay. With some exceptions, we like to be able to ask the witness questions in court. If the witness is available, let's ask him questions, because basically hearsay is like rumors being spread around someone, right? However, it's very interesting because the song is the artist's, the accused, own words, own statements. Now the question is, what is the value in doing something like this? Is it really that probative? A perfect example is artists use metaphors, acronyms. For example, YSL. YSL, they're claiming Young Slime Life, which is, I guess, the criminal organization. YSL is also a very popular clothing brand. Yves Saint Laurent, the acronym for thug, actually he used it for something totally different, something relating to acronym with God in it. So part of the issue is when you use an artist's own expression, do you even understand his expression? A lot of artists use pop culture. You know, for example, a lot of rappers, this is their social commentary about the way they grew up. Maybe poverty, maybe a tough neighborhood, maybe a lack of education. This is their message through a metaphor. So they're using a metaphor that they may or may not even understand to say this is how the crime was committed using the metaphor. It's used for a nefarious purpose of some sort.
It's art, right? So it's expression.
Right.
We know that. Okay.
Right.
But let me ask you a question, because you brought up the Johnny Cash "I Shot a Man in Reno"
Right.
song. Okay. I'm assuming that Johnny Cash did not get prosecuted for shooting someone in Reno, but my guess is that those lyrics are probably vague and maybe not intended to convey a specific crime. Had he said, "I shot Bill Smith in Reno," and Reno Police Department says, "Yeah, we got this Bill Smith guy that was murdered and we don't know who shot him," I would suspect in that situation maybe they would be calling Johnny Cash saying, "Hey, can you come in?
Right.
Let's talk to you about this I Shot
Got
Bill
a few
Smith
questions
song."
for you.
Right. So here in the Young Thug case, I am guessing that the prosecution is taking specific statements from his songs that directly correlate to crimes that were committed in that jurisdiction. Am I wrong?
So the judge ruled, and this is no longer fiction, although the song could be, that they can use 17 cents of lyrics from a song. Now, again, music, art, songs are a lot of times fiction, you know, life imitating art, art imitating life. I could see potentially, right? And this is not just about the music and the lyrics. It's about art, it's about paintings, it's about movies, it's about a script, a book. If an artist drew a picture of the crime scene before the crime scene was discovered and investigated by the police, I could see how the police may have a couple of questions.
Right.
How did you come up with this? I mean, unless you were there and you saw it. I could see how if lyrics, it could be a poem, it could be a manifesto, right? It could be something, if there's so many details there that are peculiar, unique, and are not known to the general. For example, lyrics about how a particular crime was committed, and maybe the song came out before the investigation. I mean, I could see how the prosecutor would be tempted to use it. I think the point is they want to use the accused's own words, and maybe it has a certain power because when someone says, "I did this and I did that and I'm part of that," and what they're trying to use the lyrics for with Young Thug is to show that he is connected to the criminal organization.
I think that one of the things that concerns most people is that they are using his words to say, "I am the head of that criminal organization." But at the same time, I can make a song and I can say, "I am the head of YSL." Just because a lyric pertains to a particular group, his ability, or him saying that I am the head of this group or I've done this, it's still an art form, and anybody can take that particular art form and make claims. It does not, to say that that has a probative value that can put somebody behind bars. I think that's a very concerning path that we are going to go down, because at this point every artist now will going to have to think twice before they produce that art form, that might actually get them in trouble, and that actually affects free speech at that point.
But shouldn't they? Right? I mean, obviously we're going to protect free speech. That's important. But shouldn't they? Because how many times have we seen stupid criminals brag or boast about something they did, and it gets captured, recorded, or overheard, and they get popped for it? It happens all the time in jail. I mean, police departments continuously will put plants in jail if they want somebody to open up. They don't have to worry about Miranda issues. They don't have to worry about lawyer confidentiality. If there's somebody else sitting in that holding cell or that jail cell and this guy wants to open up and talk about the things he did, boom, they can use that. If you want to be stupid enough to write a rap song or any kind of song and brag about stuff that you either did or have knowledge of or directed, shouldn't we, the people, be able to use that against you if those crimes were in fact committed?
Well, I think it's the ultimate question, and I think people in the legal world versus people, just, lay people watching it, I think the way you look at it is differently. One, if you're a layperson and you hear, someone used a popular pop culture's art against him. And a lot of artists, a lot of rappers sing about crime, about poor neighborhoods. So did they go after him and his music because of that? Did they choose this music because of that? Or did they really see something specifically probative, some real value in that particular song related to a particular crime? And like you said, is there a chilling effect? Are rappers going to be afraid to sing about violence or about what's happening in the real world? After all, what's a rap song? It's a story. It's a story composed of lyrics and musical composition. It's one way to tell the story. I mean, if someone's singing about Marilyn Manson in the first person because they want to tell that story, can we use that song now against the person saying he's a serial killer?
But you got to be careful, right? Because if you're not a part of that criminal enterprise or that crime being committed, then you probably won't have details specific. And if you did, maybe, you're going to want to censor yourself a little bit just so that you don't put yourself, right? You don't want to leave your own fingerprints, so to speak, at the scene of the crime. I don't think it's going to censor people who want to talk about life and their story and what they dealt with growing up, but maybe they're going to make sure it's not so specific. So in the case here, I'm assuming that the prosecutors probably had it out for these guys to begin with. They probably are already looking at these guys as some sort of criminal enterprise that they're trying to take down. And then at some point in time, someone had a revelation that the lyrics that this guy is using, sound a lot like a lot of these crimes. And since we're already looking at these guys for these crimes, is there a way to connect the dots here? And the court apparently is saying, yeah, you can do that now. So,
So it's the question whether you can admit this as evidence versus it has so little value. I mean, how easy it is to attack that song. What do you think his attorney would argue? What do you think his defense would be to the use of those lyrics?
I think that that's what's going to happen, right? He has competent counsel, and that he or she is going to use that defense of free speech and artist expression and creativity and whatever it is, and find ways to show that not only is he allowed to do this, but there's also some inconsistencies between what he raps about and what actually happened. Or perhaps that it doesn't quite, match up, or it's in more of a vague term. I don't know.
I think the other issue also is that I think this is the first time that we can actually see that particular form of evidence is being used. I don't believe that there has ever been a situation where the artist's own words have been used against him or were going to be admitted to be used against him to prove A, that the crime was committed, or B, that he was part of this enterprise just because he happened to say, because we're not just going as far as we're not just saying that, well, like you mentioned, where you had some particular details about the crime which were unique and specific. Those were actually basically his statements are basically saying, I am the head of this enterprise. And I think that's a dangerous and a very slippery slope where you have artists who can embellish. That's part of art is embellishment. Part of art is taking it a step further. And just because you're speaking it from a first person and it's part of your art and you're putting yourself potentially maybe in that person's thought of or frame mind or whatever it is, and now it's being used against you in a criminal trial. I think that's a very slippery slope.
Is your case so weak that what's necessary to prove it is to use the song? Are they incapable of proving the criminal allegation without using the song? If that's the case, I would think that's not a very strong case. They have other evidence that's coming out. People, colleagues of his taking plea deals, friends of his taking plea deals. Some people are saying, maybe they're afraid, maybe they don't want to take the rap for it, maybe they have unique information that's going to bring things to light and it's going to really damage him, or maybe just want to try saving their own skin. But to me, sounds much more powerful, because if people that are accused of the crime are going to testify for the government, that has, from a legal perspective, I think a little more power. But it's just using the song. Is it going to backfire? Is it going to backfire the prosecution?
Well,
what do you think?
I would say the use of the RICO statutes initially, I don't want to say that it shows it's a weaker case, but it means that they don't have any clear direct evidence against any one person individually, right? They don't have enough against Young Thug individually to go and get him for these crimes, so they need to sort of bootstrap him in with the RICO, okay? The other advantage with using the RICO is if you're attacking the whole organization, now you've suddenly got all these different defendants, and you've got all these guys or girls that potentially are flippable themselves. So the more people you pack into these rooms, the higher your chance is you're going to get someone who's going to turn and actually give you some usable information. They may not even get to the lyrics, right? The judge said they could use them, but they might not actually need them if they get enough of these guys in the criminal organization to take plea deals. And we see that happening now. There are some plea deals being taken, and then even just yesterday, one of the defendants was stabbed in prison, and so the question is, are they taking plea deals to get out, right? To be safe? Are they in trouble in there, or was that guy one of the guys lined up to take a plea deal? I don't know, and now he's getting attacked. But we see this, right? That this is a necessary tool in the criminal justice system, is attempting to turn defendants against each other. So it helps to have more than one, right?
I mean, that's how they did it with the mafia. They tried to get the low cog to give him information about someone higher up, get that person to get information about someone higher up. They wanted to go after the head of their organization, so they gave more leniency to the people on the bottom, like the ones sometimes they're actually committing the actions, part of the criminal, actual physical act. They really wanted to get to the person on top that they couldn't get to.
Yeah.
So, I mean, when you weigh that type of evidence that they have, I mean, I'm sure it's a big investigation with the big grand jury indictment, so they must be, it probably was years in the working. Why on earth would you think you need the song?
Well, I think exactly like you said, if the witnesses start disappearing slowly, right, I think that would be a situation where you would want to at least have an extra piece of evidence in there to tie it all together. I think the concern would be is what happens if no witnesses come up and you only have the song, right? I mean, I think that would be one of the question would be for the judge is the probative value of just the song itself. I would think, like you said, is that if you actually have the witnesses put together, maybe with the song, maybe that puts it somehow together, but just the song and the lyrics themselves, I will not feel
Do you think
comfortable.
It's because if they're going to put his song in court and the jury gets to listen to him saying that versus someone else saying it, his own words, his own expression as he's saying and he's singing that, do you think there's value in that potentially to the prosecutor?
It's impactful. It's definitely impactful. I think you throw around the words probative value a lot today. The opposite of that is the prejudicial effect. I think that's what, if I'm his attorney, that's what I'm arguing, that this is highly prejudicial to use the song and his words. Look, you're supposed to testify. That potentially violates the best evidence rule. He's sitting right here. He's available to testify, right? I don't know. We'll see. It's really interesting. I think I agree with you that the lyrics is just another tool in the toolbox for the prosecution, but it probably can't stand on its own as the only piece of evidence, and they're probably hoping they'll get some more stuff. But you know what, guys? It's early in the case, and now there's a delay because one of the defendants was stabbed, so we'll see. We'll have to reconvene and do this again, right?
Absolutely, we're gonna have to follow up with it. I'm just from the top of my head. I mean, if you put the song in, how easy it is to defend it. I made it up. I heard about this, so I wanted to sing about it. None of it is true. This is just my art. It's a coincidence.
Yeah.
I mean,
All right. Well, hey guys,
see what happens.
we had fun today.
We'll to be continued to see how it develops. Right?
All right. Good to see you guys.
All right.
All right.
This was a good discussion.